Ben, I'm going to throw it over to you at Red Hat. Once upon a time, you all were focused in a certain technology domain, OpenShift, et cetera. Way wider, way bigger than that these days. Tell us about where Red Hat is and what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, so first off, we have the benefit of being embedded in just about every IT system on the planet, some level. You peel back any proprietary system, even you'll find open source code that's been dropped in there from some.
That's a very impressive statement, by the way.
But it's usually from some community, upstream community that we foster. I mean, we've got something like 1 million open source projects that are generally being fostered, and only a handful of those actually turn into things that we support. So we're always at the cutting edge of the open source world. And again, it gives us this very broad perspective on how the internet is really being built. And that brings me back to a thought I kept having as you guys were speaking. I think we've kind of added a little bit of mystery to cloud. Right? In the past, we had data centers, they were yours. Cloud is somebody else's data center. Multi-cloud is lots of people's data centers. And hybrid cloud is everyone's data center plus yours. And so it's just layers of complexity when it comes to
I've never heard it framed that way, but that's a very interesting way of putting it.
I mean, it's really what it is, right? And
it is.
And so when you get into the security space, it's about extending controls across all of those environments and having consistency of control. And I think that's ultimately what everyone's trying to drive towards. Because your constituents, your customers, your mission all align to seeing those things be secured. And there's also a tremendous amount of or need for portability in all that too. Kendall hit on it with Vapo. So like one of the advantages there is he can move workloads across any one of the clouds, on-prem, whatever, without like that much resistance, because he's already sort of moved into like a modern cloud architecture. The DISA has done the same thing. CMS has done the same thing. They have these offerings where they're able to take advantage of all the different cloud vendors and their capital investments in their local data center. And I think that's really, if you start to, when you think about modernization, that's the space you want to get to. And then my last thought is, there's this movement of from here up to the cloud. And honestly, what I'm seeing now is a lot of coming back down. And so it's this acknowledgement, and John hit on this too, from NetApp, that there's this acknowledgement that we want to use everybody's data centers because that's how we scale. And then there's also the reality that you need to use what you already have too. And then you also need to be in environments that might be far away from you and in disadvantaged networks, right? So in the case of Marine Corps, you have forward deployed forces, and you want to bring cloud computing to them, right? And so how do you extend what you can do in the cloud with the same security controls all the way to the edge? And like the finest example I can provide of this is we have a bacteria synthesizer on the International Space Station. Okay, and that's actually running on an OpenShift cluster, which is the same architecture that Kendall's using for his like enterprise, is running on a tiny little machine on the International Space Station doing bacteria synthesis. And the consistency between the ground-based system and that edge node is exactly the same. The security controls are exactly the same. And so we're getting to this world where you can extend those controls out to the edge. And I think that's really, we're coming into the edge computing in full steam at this point, and we're going to see a whole lot more of it.
Absolutely. And it's